The realm. Do you know what the realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agree to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones Season 8 character breakdown video. Today I want to talk about one of the characters that is often overlooked, and that is Maester Qyburn. As we all know, Qyburn has become the hand to the queen. He has been at Cersei Lannister's side for quite some time, yet we still don't know very much about him. What does Qyburn actually want? What are his secrets? Does Qyburn have a hidden agenda? Can Cersei Lannister still trust him? These are just some of the questions I see fans often asking about this character, but since Qyburn doesn't have much of a backstory, these questions are not always easy to answer. Now before we get started, I do want to thank the sponsor of today's video. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, and whether you need a domain, a website, or even an online store, I would highly recommend that you check out Squarespace. Now let's go over some of the things we do know about Qyburn, then I will tell you what I think his plans may be for the future. As we all know, Qyburn is a former Maester of the Citadel, only he was later thrown out of the Citadel because he did do some very unethical experiments. You see, it is very common for a Maester to do autopsies on dead bodies, just like a coroner would do today, but Qyburn started to take things a step further by doing experiments on the living.
Sir Gregor is beyond saving, well beyond. This man is not even a Maester, let alone Grand Maester.
That's for the best. No Maester knows how to save him.
That is exactly the sort of arrogance that had him expelled from the Citadel, Your Grace. His curiosity was deemed dangerous and unnatural.
This is something the other Maesters at the Citadel could not allow, which led to them taking away Qyburn's chain and making him leave Old Town. Now Qyburn may be seen as a disgrace to other Maesters, but his unorthodox methods have made him one of the most knowledgeable healers in all of Westeros. What Qyburn does after he is kicked out of the Citadel is a bit of a mystery. We don't really know what he was up to during that time. We aren't introduced to Qyburn until the 3rd season of the show, when Robb and Talisa find him at Harrenhal, after what appears to be a slaughter. Qyburn was severely wounded during the attack, but he is able to survive his injuries. This has always made me wonder how Qyburn actually ended up at Harrenhal. Was he secretly trying to infiltrate the Lannisters' camp? Maybe this is something we find out next season. Well, after he recovers from his injuries, he does stay on at Harrenhal to work for Roose Bolton. This is how Qyburn eventually meets Jaime Lannister, which will also eventually lead to him becoming the hand to the queen for Cersei Lannister. Now, as we all know, Qyburn is the one that treats Jaime's infected arm after his hand was cut off. He also helps escort Jaime back to King's Landing. Season 4 is when we see Qyburn enter Cersei's service. Since then, he has always appeared to be very loyal to Cersei ever since they met. So far, it seems as if he has been able to complete any and every task Cersei has set upon him. So that makes Qyburn a very valuable asset for the queen, which is most likely why she made him the hand to the queen. As of right now, it doesn't seem like their relationship is about to change, but we still don't know if Qyburn has his own hidden agenda. We do know that Qyburn now has access to the spy network Varys used to operate when he was in King's Landing. You have to wonder if Qyburn is using Cersei to try to maneuver himself into a position to complete his own secret plans, because if that's the case, then maybe that's how he ended up in Harrenhal in the first place. It's kinda hard to guess what Qyburn's true intentions are because he is usually off to the side or standing in the back of the room. We hardly ever get any scenes that are focused entirely on Qyburn. We never get to see him associate with other characters besides the Lannisters, but I wonder what he is up to when he is off screen. That's the million-dollar question. One thing we do know about Qyburn is he is extremely effective at his work. He essentially brought Gregor Clegane back from the dead, and he was the one that made sure the wildfire was in place when Cersei wanted to blow up the Sept of Baelor. He even had the ballista made that was able to take Drogon out of the sky, even if it was only momentarily. Now, the interesting thing about him saving Gregor Clegane is he somehow made him even stronger and more loyal than he was before. This also leads to another very interesting question. Who does Gregor Clegane truly serve? Does he serve Cersei the queen, or does he truly serve Qyburn, the man that saved him from what looked to be a guaranteed death? Who would the Mountain actually answer to if Qyburn and Cersei became enemies? Does Qyburn have some kind of magical control over the Mountain that we don't even know about yet? Depending on how things play out next season, we might get this question answered. Now I think that Cersei should consider herself lucky to have Qyburn in her service. I think he is largely responsible for Cersei being able to take the Iron Throne for herself. Now I guess you can say that she has already rewarded him by turning him from a disgraced Maester into the hand of the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. That is one hell of a promotion. Like I said before, Qyburn was the one that made sure the Sept of Baelor was sitting on a ticking time bomb of wildfire, and he was the one that made sure Cersei had a weapon made that could defend against an attack from Dany's dragons. Those are two very useful weapons I believe we will see again next season. There is no way that Qyburn only had one ballista made, and I always believed that there would be more wildfire underneath King's Landing.
That old rumor you told me about. My little birds investigated.
And? Is it just a rumor or something more?
More. Much more.
So I do expect to see more fireworks during the final battle for the Iron Throne. Now there is something else I do want to mention before I forget. In my opinion, one of the most interesting things about the Dragon Pit meeting was what Qyburn did during the White presentation. It was very clear that Qyburn expressed great interest in these inhuman creatures. As you can see, Qyburn did not really appear to be startled by the White. He more so appeared to be interested in how the White actually worked. We already know this is a subject that Qyburn takes interest in. After all, he might have done something very similar with Gregor Clegane, but maybe he's wondering if he can take things even a step further. Qyburn picked up the White's hand to begin to study it for a few moments until Jon grabbed the hand and demonstrated how the Whites could be killed with fire. I do assume that Qyburn was taking mental notes of everything that was happening. I would say this is Qyburn's bread and butter. His life's work has been trying to understand the human anatomy. Now that Qyburn has seen one of the Whites with his own eyes, I wonder if he now has his own plans for the Army of the Dead. Gregor Clegane is somewhat the living proof that Qyburn has studied necromancy, and now that he knows the Army of the Dead is real, I wonder if Qyburn is thinking about making his own Army of the Dead. Now on the other hand, Qyburn could also be thinking about a way to stop the Army of the Dead. Jon did show him that fire can kill Whites, so if Qyburn does still have some wildfire left, he might be thinking of a way to use it to stop the entire army at once. We may not see Qyburn that often in this show, but we do know he is always busy working on something behind the scenes. He was the one that was locating all the wildfire before the Sept was blown up, and he already had a ballista completed before we even knew he was looking into having one made. When Qyburn saw how effective the wildfire was during the explosion of the Sept, I imagine he started looking into finding all of it under the city, or even having some more of it made. Now wildfire is not the easiest substance to make. However, ever since the dragons were born, it has become much easier to create. Most likely due to the dragons helping magic come back into the story. Now you also have to think about Cersei's own reaction when that White came running straight at her. She did look very scared, so I am betting that she wants more wildfire available just in case the Army of the Dead does make it that far south. Not to mention, Cersei has probably already thought about blowing up the entire city, if it looked like Dany or anyone else was coming close to taking the Iron Throne away from her. Now another thing that I find interesting is how Qyburn and the Night King both practice necromancy in a sense. Qyburn's knowledge of how the human body works could become more useful now than ever before. We have already seen the Night King bring several different species back from the dead. It seems obvious that the Night King is using some kind of ancient magic to be able to do that. Now what I want to know is, will Qyburn find a way to be able to tap into the Night King's secret of bringing back hundreds or thousands of people at once? So far we have only seen him do something like that with the Mountain, but now that he has seen a White, he might be trying to find a method to counteract the Night King's magic. Well, either counteract it, or create an army of his own. Now that of course is assuming Qyburn would want to use his skills for the betterment of Westeros, but when you consider who Qyburn works for, he would most likely end up using it for something much darker. After all, Qyburn has been dabbling in the dark arts for quite some time. During an interview, the actor who portrays Qyburn did talk about the scene where he was holding the White's hand. He goes on to talk about what his actor was actually thinking about in that moment, and this is what he said. That's where his head is, you know? The world could end in 5 minutes, but he is absolutely focused on, I have never seen this before. This is amazing. I could really do things with this. I thought that was an interesting thing to say about the scene. What does Qyburn actually think he can do now that he has seen a white? I am hoping that we can at least get one more scene of Qyburn working in his lab. I really want to see what he's up to next season. I really do think they've shown us Qyburn picking up the white's hand for a reason, but the question is, what are his plans for the final battle? Will he continue to stay loyal to Cersei all the way down to the bitter end? Or could Qyburn try to get out of the city when things are beginning to look like a total loss? There is one thing you have to remember about Qyburn's very first scene. You could say that he was technically saved by the Starks, since Robb and Talisa did find him and help him get back to good health. Now it does seem like Qyburn only really cares about having the freedom to be able to perform his experiments. But if it came down to life or death, would he continue to stand at Cersei's side? And of course, if Qyburn did try to abandon Cersei, how would the Mountain react to this? Would he continue to obey Cersei's commands, or does Qyburn actually have control? Let me know what you think about all of this. What do you think Qyburn's endgame truly is? Before I go, I do want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. For those of you that don't know, you can use Squarespace to help build your own website. Like I said before, there was a time when I used to think it was very difficult to create your own website, but Squarespace makes their service very easy to use and understand. They do have an all-in-one platform that even provides 24/7 customer support. If you were thinking about creating your own website, I would highly recommend that you go to squarespace.com for your first free trial. Then, when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/talkingthrones to save 10% off your first purchase. You can find their link down below in the description. I want to thank everyone for watching today's video, I really appreciate that, and I also want to thank everyone on Patreon for supporting the channel. I hope you all have a great day, and I hope to see you all come back for the next one. Bye.